Hey and welcome. This is how to repair a Chauvet Color Dash Accent Quad. Now this is the older style. They do not make these anymore, but this is a fine fixture. We bought these back in 2015 and they're just now failing on us. And what happens is the RGB module fails and the power supplies get a little iffy, so you end up with a DMX storm. These are controlled by DMX 512. You can use just about any lighting console. Very versatile unit because you can set them up through the menus for RGB, RGBA, R, G, or B. It can do 10 channel, 6 or 4 channel. You can control the base overall white color temperature, so if you're looking for a specific shade of white, you can create it with this fixture. It's been a really nice fixture for us, but again, it just gets old and the modules fail. So what we're going to do now is actually replace these parts, and you'll just be looking over my right shoulder here and keeping an eye on things as I do this rebuild on this Chauvet Color Dash Accent Quad. Now I do have the parts that I've already purchased from Chauvet Parts Direct. Very nice website, easy to use. The only thing I wish they would do is not send the little power supplies with the control boards. I actually had one of these where the switch was busted, but that's just, you know, the apes in the shipping departments of the line that sent me this stuff. So what do you expect? Also, the LED module. Don't worry, it's LED. Can't break the filament. So this is the LED module, and that tiny little chip right there, that is the guy that does all 4 of the color channels. I honestly thought it would be bigger. It all comes down to the lens design that they have inside the fixture itself. It's pretty impressive, to tell you the truth. And I've got a few little parts tubs here to catch screws and things. But let's get started on it. The first thing you're going to need, I like the T-handle the best. Feels good in your fingers when you're using it, and you can judge how much torque you're putting on it by the deflection in the handle. Again, this is a metric 2.5 millimeter. 3/32 will sort of fit into the Allens, but don't do it because you'll strip out the heads. The other thing is, I was taking the leg sets off. Leave them on because you can set the cords off to the side, open up the leg set, and use it as a little tripod. Well, I guess it's not really a tripod. I don't know what the heck it would be called. A dual stand. But you can set it up like such. Now it's hands-free, and you can take your wrench and go have at it. So we'll crack these loose. There's just 3 of these 2.5 millimeters. Now be careful when you lift this ring off, retainer ring, because there is a piece of diffusion frost that goes over the top of this lens assembly. See, you don't want to get that dirty or scuffed or cracked or busted. And then this is not glued down, the lens. It just simply lifts off. And put those in a very safe place. I've got a container here. We'll do that. And they use this Gleptol red paint on these connectors. With being thrown around in a lighting case, things like that, you probably want to put Gleptol paint back on that so that the connectors don't wiggle themselves loose. I'm not going to worry about it because these, for the most part, hang in a lighting grid that never moves and doesn't go anywhere. So I'm just going to scratch the Gleptol loose, which then I can grab with some radio pliers. Peel off the power supply, and then I can get under the RGBA connector, give it a little wiggle. That's free. There are 2 outside screws, and I've been using a standard Exolite number 2 Phillips, and that's gotten me everything I needed here. Undo the left and the right here. Use a set of needle nose to pick up the screws. This whole assembly just lifts right out. And on the back side is the heatsink compound. This stuff is kind of dried out. I mean, look, it's not even smearing. So what I think happens is after years and years and years of baking in this aluminum case, it just dries out and then the LED fails. I don't know any other way around it. I mean, you have to have the heatsink compound, but it is what it is. It's for as old as it is, we got a lot of life out of it. So I'm using just a rag, just to wipe up the old stuff, get it off of there, because I'm going to put down fresh stuff. This goes in the junk bin. I've got some new, just regular old heatsink silicone-based compound, and I'm going to take that to my new module. I've put the part numbers for these modules in the list because they're like, I don't know, 25 or something characters long. I'm not going to try to recite it. I'd run out of recording media before I ever got to the ending. The big thing is getting heatsink compound in the middle, and then I run a bead around and make an infinity symbol, because that's where all the heat has to displace. And I put some up in one corner, the other corner, and a little right here. That's all I need. Next, let's plug those cables back in. So, got our power and our RGBA. Just plug those right back in on our new module. These are polarized plugs. They only go in one way. There's the RGBA. Here comes main power. With those connected, I only got a little on my finger. With those connected, we'll go ahead and position this to go back in. The way they did the board layouts with the cutouts, it's kind of self-centering, so you don't even have to worry about, oh, I put it in upside down. You can't. It's not possible. You know, the clockwork will fit the first time. We'll probably see a little ooze out through the two tiny little mounting holes that are here in here that are used to, I guess they're alignment dowels that are on the back of the lens. And there's two little pins. Let me point those out for you because that helps if you don't know they're there. This guy and this guy, the little bumps that line up the lens over top of the LED module. I am using a magnetized screwdriver. Not a big fan of magnetized screwdrivers because I've used to do Betacam, 1-inch, 3/4 pneumatic tape maintenance, and a magnetized screwdriver in those was the kiss of death on some of the sensors. But in this application, magnetized screwdriver is not going to hurt. So I guess there's a place for everything, and this is one where a magnetized screwdriver will save you a lot of time. And we're going to compress those down. You don't want to crack the board in half, but you want them to be snug. And there we see some ooze out, just like I said would happen. Tiny little dimple of it. Just going to use a greenie here and pick it up. Wipe off. I figured that would happen, but that's also a good sign because now I know behind this LED where all the heat's generated, I have a good heatsink bond. Then I have a little denatured alcohol on the end of this cotton swab, and I'll just give it a little mop up just to make sure didn't get any on the LED lens of the LED itself. Now we're ready to reassemble. Here is the lens. Again, tiny little dimple, and we just need to line that up in the keyhole. That's done. And here's that diffusion. There's a glossy side of this, and then there's a flat matte side. The matte side faces up towards us on these. Then the last step is we're going to put the retainer ring back on. I have all three of my screws in place, and I'm just going to line it up with the holes. It's like a game of operation. Give that one a spin. Get it started. That one a spin. Get it started. That one a spin. get it started. And then I'll bring it down, hold it in place. That one's done. Get it close. That one's done. Get it close. This one. There we go. And tighten for deflection. Tighten for deflection. Tighten for deflection. It's not going on an aircraft carrier or rough seas or anything like that, so we don't have to worry about the screws backing out. So there's no point in putting thread lock or anything like that. It just makes a mess. So the business end of this fixture is already fixed. It only took us 10 minutes. So with our little stand here, let's loosen it up and get the butt end of it up in the air here. And I'm going to rotate it 180, or actually 90 degrees. No, 180. I was right the first time. I know direction. All right. When and if you work on one of these, if the power cord's all cinched up like this, it actually fights you a little bit, and I'll tell you why. Because it's a big ball of mass, and that's what you don't want fighting you. There are two screws on the back here, one on each side. That's all you have to take, and this whole unit's going to come out. And that is the board that's buried back there. I am reusing my display modules because Chauvet Parts was out of them, so that's not a big deal. I can just unplug it and plug it into this one. And also we'll replace that power supply that's buried down in there. You will need to put your power supply back in some of these. These are pigtail connectors, capped and pigtail connectors. And using the right set of crimping pliers really makes a difference on these. So I can put my cap end connector in there, slide my wires in, give it a nice good squeeze, and we're back in business. But yeah, Grinder Bender makes these. It's a 20-089. That's a pretty short part number. They work really well, 22 to 14 AWG. Pardon my capacitors here, they're falling over. That's for another project. All right, so on to the back end. I've got just a soft cotton t-shirt with a little simple green on it. Use whatever very, very mild cleaner that you want. Just get the dust off of it, because if you're doing business for somebody, it should look like you did business for somebody. You like the coffee cup? My wife got that. I'm here because you broke something. Okay, thirst quenched, on we go. We're going to take this screw out, crack it loose, this screw out, crack it loose, so the left and the right sides. Now, I like to hold this down, and you should be able to back this right off with the T-handle. T-handle really makes this a breeze. If you didn't have a T-handle, trying to do this with a small Allen is horrible. I did a few of them that way, and you see I went out and bought T-handles. Very gently lift up, and inside of here, you're only going to get so far, because there is wiring harness that's going to stop you. One of those things are those caps for the main power. Those are going to get in your way. So you just kind of bury them out of there, and those were tucked down into this corner over here, and that's where they're at. I will go with my snips and cut the power supply side closest to the power supply, because I want this piece to be as long as it can, because it comes out the body of the light fixture. There we go. We're going to save the silicone shrink that goes over the tubing that goes over the mains to the power supply, because we got to put it on the new one when we get there. And let's do that next. There are two screws in the bottom of the case down here. You need to remove each one of those, and the power supply will lift out the rear. There is one cable that is plugged into this power supply, and it's like a Y adapter. It has a black and a red wire, polarized, so it only goes on one way, and that cable runs to two different places. It runs to the front business end where the LED module is located, and then the other end comes back to the controller board mounted on the rear of the light fixture assembly. And we just lift right out, and there you go. And there's that Y cable I was just talking about. And just simply unplug it. The funny part is they put Gliptol on all these other joints and connections, but they didn't bother putting any on the power supply. So see why I'm not too concerned about it. Let's take our new power supply out. We'll just shove this off to the side a little. Oh, I can't defeat the bag. We might be done here. Oh, here we go. There we go. Brand new power supply. First thing I'm going to do is put that little rubber tube over the leads of the brand new power supply. It's important because there are a few things in here that get a little warm, and you don't want this wiring to melt. That could be a disaster. There is a little sled on the bottom of this power supply that has 3 screws. 2 up here, 1 down here. You got to undo those 3 screws. The old power supply will lift off, and we can screw down the new power supply. So let's do that. And again, that magnetic screwdriver comes into play. Great time to use it. 1 screw, 2 screws, 3 screws. And you can tell this one's been in there for a long time because the PCB, look how, you know, nobody's been smoking in there, that's for certain. It's really yellowed. You throw that in my junk bin. Still works, but if I got to open it up anyway, why not just shotgun it? That way I know I'm good to go for a while. Sense wire in the way there. And we'll just screw the new supply down. So I do this in stages. I do front LED, interior guts power supply, and then rear control board. You do it in stages, it's not too bad. I started errantly taking them completely apart, and that's just a mess. I was even taking the wiring harness out. Like, gee whiz, I don't even have to do that. If I just do it in stages, I can do each section a little at a time and be much more efficient at it. Oops. Don't forget to plug the Y cable back into the power supply port, or else it won't work. I've done that once too, and you almost caught me doing it there too. Oop. Pull it again, polarized cable, so only goes on one way. There we are. And to line this guy up, there's our screw holes. So this is where Mr. Magnetized Screwdriver pays off again. And we'll do another one. There's two screws. And there we go. So the power supply, the new one, has been bolted into place. Now let's reconnect our mains. You can see our power lead comes in through the rear, and the neutral and hot dress off to a couple of those single-ended pigtail capped end crimps. I want to try to save as much wire as I can, and this little flange prevents me from getting underneath here. So what I usually do, a snip on this side of the plastic cap, a snip on this side of the plastic cap, fold it back, and then snip the wire way up high. So I've saved myself almost 1/4 of an inch of cable right there that I would have lost. And the reason I'm saving them is because if I have to do this again, I don't want that power cord to get so short that I've got to take it out of the strain relief, slide a little more in, and redress everything. That just sucks when you got to do that. Plus the cord's technically shorter, and I guess if you want to anger your lighting manager, that might be a good way to do it. A 16 strip here. Just strip a little bit of wire. Same thing here. Neutral side. And black to black, white to white. Hot to hot, neutral to neutral, as they say. Don't want to flip-flop those. It is a switched mode power supply inside of here. So I can't help but wonder, if they were backwards, would it really matter? Because it's not running through anything that would prevent it from functioning. So then we take our first cap and our crimpies, feed him in to the end, and squeeze it like an orange at breakfast. Now we'll do the neutral. And yes, I did twist those together before I put them into the end of the cap. If you just shove them into the cap, you're playing the game of one wants to poke out, and that gets old. There's your orange juice. And with that, we have now completed the next phase, which was replacing the power supply. So again, this is our last bit. This control board module gets pulled out. Here's the DC supply, and you see they've got Gliptol all over it. I just scratch it in a couple of places with a greeny screwdriver, a little wiggle, and ta-da! Same deal here. And this is the RGBA cable that feeds the LED module. And then the last one, this 3-pin DMX cable. It's funny because these are 5-pin balanced DMX for signals in and out, but they're only really using the 3 pins. So kind of comical, but it is what it is. The only other thing that needs to be done is this green ground wire, simply fold it up out of the way and note the position, because you're going to fold it right back in the same way. There are 3 screws on the control board, here, here, and here, and we're going to take those out, and the whole control board will come loose. He's a little guy, but the other thing to note is on the back of this control board, it'll say color dash accent quad. Make sure it's the same on your replacement part. I've seen a couple of them where it was a wrong board version. I thought I was getting a new version, and here I was getting an old. So with that, there's my control board. Here's the sticker, and you can see this is color dash accent quad, color DAS, and version 1.5 firmware. I couldn't tell you what the difference is between a 1.5 and a 1.7, but our new board, minus the module we have to swap, is 1.7. There you go. So let's put the display on. Slide that back out of the way. And this is a very beautifully designed, I don't know who thought this up, but this is beautifully designed. Just a little wiggle. Look at that. And now from Chauvet, I can toss my old control board and put the new one together. So all I'm going to do, see the cut, the delineated cut 145 here on the mitered corner. That goes in the upper right if you were looking at it, in case you forget. There you go. So look for that little cut. So let's put this guy together. We'll only go together one way. Never force it. Gentle rock. And now it's seated. Now let's go the other direction. Oh, off camera, sorry. now it's seated, now we can go the other direction. So let's slide this guy back into frame. Take my finger and just pop that window up. And again, we'll take our cloth, and why have it look like dusty fingerprints? You don't have to. Put the window back in. The green ground wire is going to fight you a little bit, but that's okay. You shall defeat it. Bend it back. Yellow ground's going to fight me on this one too, I see. The yellow ground goes from the rear assembly, from the main ground lug, to the body of the fixture. That's what provides the grounding structure there. And just a little wiggle to line up each one of the 4 micro switches. There it is. And then we take our magnetic screwdriver, and I will put down just the top screw for the moment so I can get the other screws started. And we are almost completely done with this assembly. Last screw. I think I've done a dozen of these now. Now, check the orientation of these switches. It is possible to wiggle the controller board up or down and get these long elongated push button switches kind of whopper jawed in there, and then they'll stick. So make sure that they're centered nicely in the holes, and then you can go back and give the 3 screws for the control board a final Mr. Snuggie here. Alright, with that done, let's take that green ground wire and let's fold it back down on top of the control board. We're going to take the DMX cable, we're going to plug that back in, and that is 3 wires, and it's polarized and it can only fit in one slot. The RGBA cable is polarized and will only fit in one slot. And the last one is that DC power that runs the controller board itself. Now, that being said, now we got to stuff everything back together so we can put the 2 screws in the rear cap, and then our assembly will be complete. So, I like to use a long pair of needle nose and take those pigtail end connectors and get them into that upper left-hand corner. So this is the top with the blade, bottom denoted by this extra brass ground lug down here. That's the bottom of the fixture and the top of the fixture. So you want to get those caps pushed down into the corner and everything else. So just wiggle into place. And with 2 fingers, I'll hold that down. A 2.5 millimeter hex. Get it started. 2.5 millimeter hex. I do not recommend electric screwdrivers here. It's cast aluminum. You will strip the bejesus out of it if you try to use one. Ask me how I know. And just need to torque. All right, one more, and we are done. So let's take our Mr. Power cord and let's just go plug him in right here, and you'll see that the display has come to life. We're on firmware version 1.7. It's a color dash accent quad. This automatically by default, when you replace the control board, The new version automatically knows this is set for a master fixture. I can see the display on this one needs to be replaced. There's some broken characters, but that's okay. I can make it work. So let's go through here. And one of the things I use here at my facility is we use a 4-channel DMX. So I'm going to go down to, say, 4-color channel, enter. And then the only other thing I like to do is go into the auto test, and I put it on 3, which is like a pulsed light, and I let her run. So what I'll do now that this is all repaired is I'll put a sticker on it on this side that denotes today's date and that it was completely rebuilt. But there's our Color Dash Accent Quad. That was dead as a doornail. That is now back up and fully functional by replacing the main RGBA LED, the power supply, and upgrading the controller board to firmware version 1.7. The only thing I didn't do was replace that display, but I think you can see how easy that would be to do if you had some on hand. Unfortunately, Chauvet was out of stock on those, otherwise I would have bought some too. That's it, folks. Hope you enjoy this video. I'll let this cook 24 hours, and we should be back in business, and I can go hang it back up in the light grid. See you later. Thanks for watching. Bye.